Hi everybody and welcome to our Kentucky Derby watch party. Sorry it took us a little bit to get it going. We were having some technical difficulties, but I'm here and now I paused it right here. If you're watching the Derby live at home, watching the NBC coverage, you might already be past where we are at this point. But what I wanted to show you is I thought that this would be really interesting to watch because when I was a racehorse groom back, we won't talk about how long ago that was, I actually took care of racehorses in the same barn with Steve Asmussen, who is right here, and they are just about to tell his life story. So I'm very excited to hear that, and I wanted to pause it there so that I could watch it and see where he came from. And it's amazing to see where he's gone with his career after all these years of being in the same barn with him back in Shakopee, Minnesota, a long time ago. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and get it started. And if you're joining us, please comment in the comment section so that we know that we have some viewers out there.
Family story it would be. It's a story shared.
Yeah, there's no viewers right now. Someone joined and someone left right before you said that.
The Asmussen family farm in Laredo, Texas feels a long ways away from Churchill Dent.
So somebody is there or no?
Someone was, but they're not anymore.
But this is where Steve Asmussen learned everything he needed to know to get to the Kentucky Derby. Steve and his brother Cash, a successful jockey, grew up immersed in the family business.
When I was growing up, there wasn't these daycares and all that stuff, so we had them at the barn with them 90% of the time.
Okay, these pictures are of the boys. This is one of Steve's first stake wins. That was a world champion quarter horse that Keith rode. This is my biggest stakes win as a trainer with my husband riding.
It got to be a family situation.
So for those of you that just joined us,
got up on this new.
I just was telling everybody earlier that the reason that I wanted to pause it here is because I used to actually work when I was a racehorse groom in Steve Asmussen's barn. I did not work for him, but I definitely worked in the same barn as he did back in Shakopee, Minnesota.
Well, first, is our darling, darling, beautiful grandson, Superstock.
Steve's son Keith inherited not only his grandfather's name, but also his passion for racing. During the pandemic, when college classes went online, Keith had more time to ride horses for his dad, and he took notice of a promising young colt owned by his granddad.
My first encounter with Superstock, I call Papa. I tell him I know what I want for Christmas. I want to ride this horse to race.
Superstock is going to break his maiden.
I mean, how cool is that? You know, you got your kid exercising horses for you, and he's got enough horsemanship to feel that talent, even at that early of a stage on that horse. The gift that keeps on giving.
To be able to do it for my grandfather, who taught me, my father, who taught me as well. They've literally taught me everything I know, and to be able to have enough to get it done, which it's not me, it's the horse, but I like to think I contribute.
Who else thinks that was kind of interesting that all those horses had halters on in their stalls?
Oh yeah, you contribute. You was there.
Keith has since returned to college, but Superstock kept on racing.
Superstock, Ricardo Santana win the Arkansas Derby!
Arkansas Derby, a big Kentucky Derby prep race.
After a lifetime in the sport, grandfather and father Keith Asmussen owns a Derby horse for the first time, one that might end his son's Derby frustrations and bring a very special victory back to Laredo.
The best part about it for me has been the people that know my family and my parents and just the work without the accolades and the success, the 430s, the love and respect they've shown my parents for getting to this stage.
It would be wild if he'd win that, wouldn't it? Huh?
It would absolutely be the thrill of 50 years in the racing industry.
That'd be pretty
And
cool.
now I gotta find something to wear.
Mom's words ring true, right? And she found something great. Many generations of the Asmussen family on hand here today. Lafitte Pinkine knows personally what it's all about for family to stay in the business. He's standing by with Mike Smith, who's aboard another Asmussen horse, Midnight Bourbon, here today. Lafitte?
Yeah, Mike, two-time Kentucky Derby winning jockey, Mike Smith. Mike, you were just telling me you've known the Asmussen family since you were a little kid. What would it mean to win a Kentucky Derby for the Asmussens?
Well, that'd mean a whole lot because of that, really, because, you know, we go way back. I've known the Asmussen family. I've ridden with Steve when he rode, his brother Cash, and his father Keith. And Miss Asmussen's like all of our mothers, you know, so we go way back. But if anyone deserves a Derby, it's Steve. He's done everything else there is to do in this game. You need to get him a Derby.
You're making history this afternoon.
Yeah.
You could make history if you win. You become the oldest jockey to win the Kentucky Derby, but this will be your 27th Derby ride. That's a record. Do you feel as though that gives you an edge in terms of experience in this particular race?
I mean, I certainly think it does. That doesn't mean that some guy who doesn't have any experience can't just jump up and win it for the first time. But it's like anything in life, period. You know, especially in sports, man. There's nothing like experience. So, you know, they tell themselves, I'm going to ride this like it's just another race, but it's not. Trust me when I'm telling you. It's not another race. It's the Kentucky Derby. It's what we all dream of. And that nervous energy will get to you if you don't know how to handle it.
Well, from your experience then, looking at the race on paper, where do you feel Midnight Bourbon would be most effective?
Well, he seems to be pretty forwardly placed all the time for such a big horse. They say he's really quick out of the gate. So we're going to jump well and at least let him run that first 50 to 100 yards and see where he puts himself. And then after that point there, you'll kind of know what's going on, who's going to be a little more aggressive and try and take the lead and who's not. And then just get him into a happy rhythm at that point. But it should put him up, I would say, within the top 4 or 5.
Best of luck, Mike.
Thank you.
And by the way, Mike, his first Derby win using my dad's saddle.
Yeah, oh, there you go. Kind of ties the whole family deal together. Mike Smith, 155-year-old Hall of Famer, tries to win a Derby for a 55-year-old Hall of Famer in Asmussen.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and fast forward a little bit and get through the commercials. Unfortunately, we don't have a commercial-free version here. As we get more into it, they get closer to talking about the horses that are actually racing. I'll make some more comments about the betting and the horses' chances and those kind of things.
A little bit at the top of this hour.
Here we are, back to the
Pretty enthused crowd. They are glad to be out and enjoying one of these gatherings, which has been so few and far between in the last 14 months for the country, about a third of the normal Kentucky Derby crowd. Sonia Richards-Ross has been watching all the fashion trends for us. Gave us a little sneak peek earlier. You're a 4-time Olympic gold medalist, so you're going to give out some awards here. I want you to start picking out here the best, the fashion window of the day.
That's right, Mike. And I know you've been waiting for my selections, and not my Derby picks, but my fashion picks. So starting off with my winner, and this one was hard, but I loved her because she knocked 2 trends out the park. She was right in bold color and a beautiful big statement hat. She absolutely captured the theme and the vibe of the Kentucky Derby, and I just loved how much fun she was having. Hands down my winner today.
All right, she gets the gold medal now. We saw the stewards earlier. There is an inquiry available, and you have an inquiry, something that needs a little bit of a deeper dive.
That's right, Mike. You know, my husband played football, so I'm throwing a flag on this play. If you're going to bring your friends to the Derby, you better coordinate. You can't all come in tatters, making a statement and not match. So an official inquiry being thrown here to these guys for not coordinating this look.
And he was a great DB. That's not a 5-yard penalty. That's a big one. That's the full distance on that one. That's the inquiry. We have the awards. You know, we've got function meeting fashion now because of the pandemic and the mask. So do we have a best combo there?
We do. This woman got it right when she paired her mask and hat perfectly. And I must say, the ladies of the Kentucky Derby have actually started an amazing trend with these masks. I absolutely love it. Ladies, take note. This is how you do it when you're coordinating your look, especially for an awesome event like the Kentucky Derby.
Job well done all the way around to keep with the protocols. Hopefully it's 1 year. We're in a better place for the 2022 Derby. Job well done. Gold medalist put in the right place. Thanks, Sonia.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, get back to the track here now. We're about 10 minutes away from our next race. Take a look at the odds for the Churchill Downs Stakes, presented by Ford. 86th running of this. This is for the older horses. 4-year-olds and up. It's 7 furlongs to be on the dirt track. It's the last race on the dirt before we get to the Kentucky Derby, which is race 12. Tap It to Win is the 3-1 favorite. The fans have made Whitmore the second choice at 4.5 to 1 or 9 to 2. And then Flagstaff is number 3
Okay, so
choice.
we'll see if I can make any comments here.
In 10 starts, Mark Cassie's had a good day. We'll see if the trainer can find the winner's circle one more time here today. We'll get you to this race after this.
I like how they braided into that Tony horse's tail.
We done.
All right, let's move on through.
TV.com to get started. Take one last peek.
So with the Derby, of course, there's races happening all day long. So it's not just the Derby today. So this is the Derby is the 12th race. So they were saying this is the last race on the dirt, meaning that the next race is going to be on the turf or the grass. They don't run very many races on the grass because it tears up the grass. And so you only will probably have in a typical race day, one race that's actually run on the grass. And whether or not a trainer chooses to run his horse on the dirt or on the grass really depends on the horse. Some horses prefer to run on grass as opposed to dirt. And that is just something that a trainer is going to have to figure out about that horse. The only downside about it is that there's probably a lot more money to be made in the dirt racing than there is in the turf racing. Of course, like the big races like the Derby and the Belmont, all of those are all run on the dirt. Here, for those of you that aren't familiar, these are the odds of what these horses are running at. This is the number of the horse. These are the colors that they're going to be wearing. They're silks. The horse's name, of course, and then their odds, all except for this horse, which of course was scratched from the race for some reason, probably an illness or an injury. So what this means here is the lower the odds, like the 3 to 1, means that you're not going to make very much money if you were to bet on that horse. But the 26 to 1, you're going to make a lot of money if you bet on that horse and it wins. So if you bet $1 on that horse, you're going to make $26. And so keep in mind, a minimum bet is $2 anyway. So that's a good one. But then that means that horse actually has to either come in for second or third, and you'll only get that $26 if you bet the horse to win and he actually did win.
Churchill Downs presented by Ford. Tap It to Win, the 3 to 1 choice, and on for the rest of it. Talk about these horses as they get set.
So I'm going to just walk around behind the camera, and I'll keep talking, making some commentary about these horses as they're coming down that what we call the post parade, heading down towards the starting gate.
To those 7 furlongs, just shy of a mile on the dirt, $500,000. The purse, well, Tap It to Win was not the morning line favorite. It's going from 8 to 1 to 3 to 1. It's the Twin Spires market mover highlighting the runner, taking the most money in the win pool late in the betting for the upcoming race for the Churchill Downs Stakes, presented by Ford. To bet any horse you like in the next race, you can take advantage of the Twin Spires money back offer. Place a win bet on any horse in any race at Churchill Downs today. If your horse finishes second or third, get your money back. Download that Twin Spires app or head to twinspires.com. Available to new and existing players, and all you have to do is opt in. I opt for Enzo to give me his read on what's coming up here.
Okay, Mike, thank you very much. The last couple of dirt races that we saw have been kind to horses that have been on the front, right? We saw Gamine go wire to wire. We saw Jackie's Wire in a great fight with Dream Shake. So, yeah, I think you got to be relatively close. We're going 7 furlongs, and to me, the speed of the race is going to come from the 4, the 8, and the 10. So what does that tell me? I'm looking at those fractions maybe going in that 45-second and half a mile in this race. The faster they go, the better it will be. And I think that the 4-horse Flagstaff can just sit off of the 2 other speed horses, carry it home, and look for some horses underneath with the 7, the 12, and 5. So, Mike, I'm going to go across the board on the 4 and use the 7, 12, and 5 underneath.
Gotcha. All right. We'll mark Enzo and Flagstaff, see if that can lead Enzo to build that piggy bank back up as we work towards the Derby. Jerry Bailey, Randy Moss, let's start talking a bit more about these horses. And let's go to the 5, Jerry, because we talked about Tap It to Win and the move that horse has made in the odds from the morning line. This is a horse we saw in the Belmont Stakes in June last year, first of the Triple Crown races last year, finished 5th.
Yeah, but he was 5 to 1 in that race. He was kind of a hot horse in the Belmont, coming off a big win the race before, going 1 turn.
He ended up in the Pat Day Mile here last September on the Kentucky Derby weekend in September. He was third in this race. Then his trainer Mark Cassidy gave him a bit of a layoff. He comes back in Tampa with a huge win at 6 furlongs. Now he's stretching it out to the mile. But he's a horse that can win on the lead, or as Enzo said about Flagstaff, sitting right behind. So he's got options. He's a little tactical, and I think he's got a big chance.
Tactical to win since that 5th in the Belmont, has run in one other Grade 1, finished 2nd in the Jerkins at Saratoga back in the summer. Whitmore's been around for a while, a little bit older horse here, Randy.
That's what makes him one of the more popular horses in America. He's been so good for so long. He's now an 8-year-old. He won the Breeders' Cup Sprint last fall, last year's national champion sprinter. He's been starting his 8-year-old season. He's 0 for 2 second-place finishes, may have lost a step, but more importantly, he's running this race for the first time in his life without leader medication Lasix, which is no longer being used for graded stakes races or the Kentucky Derby for the first time in 3 decades, right? Some horses are prone to respiratory bleeding. Lasix has helped correct that. Trainer Ron Moquett is not sure how Whitmore is going to run without Lasix, because very early in his career, he experienced a small bleeding episode. He calls this the great experiment. If he runs well without Lasix, then it'll help him map out some of his races the rest of the year. If he doesn't, then he'll have to go to plan B.
Whitmore, currently the number 2 choice at 9
I think that's a
to 2.
great move in the right direction for sure. I'm so excited to see that they are limiting the use of drugs in racing horses, because even though there's really no negative side effects to a horse running on Lasix other than thinning their blood so they're less likely to break little blood vessels because they build up so much of the blood pressure when they're racing, of course, these big athletes. But I am glad to see that change. I know that this trainer is probably concerned about that in this horse, and whether or not his horse is going to be able to run well today without that. And if you have a little tiny nosebleed or even a big nosebleed in the middle of running a big race, obviously it's going to be very difficult for you to be able to concentrate and do well. But I think for horse racing in general, it's a good move. It's an excellent move. It's something that I think everybody can get behind, that we really want to limit how much these horses are on any kind of medication. And even though Lasix is really not a big deal, I still like to see that they're moving away from allowing that in thoroughbred horse racing at these high levels.
Is the 4. We mentioned Whitmore's 8 years old. Flagstaff is 7 years old.
Yeah, he's always tactical. He comes off a big win over Keeneland in 7 furlongs. And for a sprint race, overall, there's not a ton of early speed in here. There are a couple of horses that Enzo mentioned, the Bango at the 10 and also the 8 that will have some speed, but not off the chart speed. So I think Flagstaff, being a little versatile, will be up close, not more than a length or 2 off the lead, and he can either lead or he can sit right off, which makes him dangerous as well. I totally agree with Enzo and that logic.
So if anybody's wondering what's going on here with this horse, this little puffy thing on the nose is called a shadow roll. And basically that is to help shield the horse from seeing shadows on the ground. So this horse clearly maybe has a little bit of a problem with that. And so you put a shadow roll there. It limits their ability to see right there on the ground and possibly get spooked or distracted in a race. So that's what that piece of equipment's all about.
Other horses in this race include the 2 Randy Mind Control horse that was heavily raced last year. 8 starts, 2 victories in those 8 starts.
That's where we're at now in America. A horse with 8 starts is considered heavily raced, right? I mean, it's pretty unusual. He finished 2nd last time out to one of the real up-and-coming sprinters in America named Mischievous Alex. That was in the Carter handicap at this distance at Aqueduct. He's a horse that's very consistent. He doesn't win that often when he's taken out of New York, but he's certainly in this race with a chance.
Of course, he's beginning to load. Again, we remind you, if you weren't with us for the earlier race that was on dirt, the 8th race, the track has been rated fast, and no bias that you've seen, Jerry, in the races on the dirt today.
No, it's been pretty fair. If you go too fast, you pay the price. If it's a moderate pace, then you can hang on up front.
This track usually in great condition, and the rain from Wednesday and Thursday, far distant memory with the breeze and the sunshine. We've enjoyed the last 2 days. If you go to
So if you see any equipment or anything like that, or concerns that you have on these horses, please drop a message in the comments and I'll try to make sure that I comment on it.
Fast, you pay the price unless you're a horse named Jackie's Warrior.
Drone up in the corner filming.
And for the call of the Churchill Downstakes, presented by Ford, here's Larry Coles.
Lexingtonian completes the line here.
Let's
We
see, here
are
they
ready
are.
for the start. They're all in line. They're off in the
A little
Churchill
bit of a bubble right there.
And off to an even beginning here as the
It's a sprint race, so it's going to be fast.
Staff will go to the early lead and joined to the outside by Get the Prize, and Get the Prize gets a head in front. Between horses, Tapping to Win is right there. Outside of them, Bango, Lexingtonian, a close-up fifth. On the far outside, Mind Control, sixth along the rail with 2.5 lengths to make up early on. Then back to Mason. Fat Man is next along the rail. Alongside of Whitmore, the champion sprinter is 8 lengths
It
off
looks like you're having a good trip so far.
Quarter mile in 21.97 seconds. And on the inside is Shake Me Up, who's racing about 9 lengths behind midway on the far turn. Hungry Hustle comes from off the pace to second last and endorsed at the back of the pack. The half mile in 44.21 seconds, and they're coming to the top of the stretch. Bango pokes ahead in front. Here comes Flagstaff.
Okay, here it goes.
To the far outside.
Here they come. Ooh, look at this horse on the inside coming in. Oh, this guy's, I don't know.
Hungry Hustle coming with Mason from the back of the pack. Mind Control on the far outside. Here's Whitmore to strike the run. Whitmore is taking the lead.
Can he hang on? Can he hang on? Oh my gosh, look at all those horses coming for the wire. Oh my gosh, that was exciting. Did you see all those horses right at the end? Wow.
In a final time of 121.82.
Recall Jerry Flagstaff with that charge as several horses
Wow, that was pretty
chase
fun.
down the lead of Bango down the stretch. And Flagstaff gets a 7th career victory for the 7-year-old, taking the Churchill Downs Stakes, presented by Ford by a nose.
If it was Flagstaff, look, and he broke really well. He was heading for the lead early, eased back when the pace got a little too hot for him, and then he tipped out and then made his run along with a lot of other horses, including Whitmore. Oh God, what a finish!
Oh man, is this an exciting race or what?
Yeah, let's think.
And there's the 4, and it was Flagstaff who had his nose down on the wire. How about that? Co-owner the Rose Racing Stable, trainer John Sadler. They'll have, of course, Rock Your World.
Another thing you might find kind of interesting about that is that our racehorses that we get after they've been on the track and been racing, they're taught. I mean, you saw that. I mean, the one horse they were talking about has been racing for 8 years, right? So that horse for 8 years has practiced running full strength, full out, nose in front, trying to reach for the finish line. And so when we get them here, or anybody gets a racehorse that's off the track that's retired, it takes quite a bit of time to retrain them when we're working with them so that they don't have that big reach out front. Because when we're training them for riding purposes, we tend to want their noses a little bit down and their backs curved to carry our weight and distribute their weight underneath them and kind of hold themselves more in a position.
Six made a huge run in the middle of the track to take the lead in the shadow of the water, but just couldn't quite see it out. The old 8-year-old gave it everything he had, ran a heck of a race, just wasn't quite good enough, and one of the more entertaining races you'll see all day.
No doubt, even there, halfway, 3/4 of the way through the stretch to the finish line, you had a feeling Whitmore was going to get there. Instead, it was Flagstaff. Luis Saez aboard for that trip and with Donna Brothers now.
Luis, congratulations. Your first time to ride Flagstaff, and yet it was a perfectly timed ride. At what point did you realize you were going to win? When they hung up your number?
Well, yeah. You know what? He rode pretty well. I know we went pretty quick, so I just tried to relax. I went out, and then when we came to the top of the stretch, he feel that, the competition, and he was battling.
So speaking of the competition, you're going to have 18 with the Scratcher King Fury horses in competition later in the Kentucky Derby with Essential Quality. You've ridden him in every start of his life. What sort of a trip are you hoping for with him today?
Yeah, I was hoping for a great trip, I guess.
We're talking about Essential Quality. What kind of trip are you hoping for with him today?
You know what, it's the Derby, so we're going to break running from there and then see where we are. Try to get her in the clear.
Are you going to try to go to the lead, or do you think he's better from off the pace? He's done both.
That horse, all the time I've been riding, he looked like he can run anywhere. So if he's there by himself, take it. Why not?
I'm sure you will. Well done. Good luck later.
He hopes to cross the finish line first. He did in the Kentucky Derby 2 years ago, but did not win. Remember, he was on maximum security. Country House ends up winning that race. Here's Nick Club.
Mike, I'm with John Sadler. John, that was an extremely tough performance. Is that what you were anticipating today from Flagstaff?
Just really thrilled. You know, he's a hard knocker if you look at his form. He never runs a bad race. He's been close with Whitmore and CZ Rocket in the big sprints earlier this year. So it's good that he knocked out a big one today.
It could be a lovely aperitif for you. You see your first run for the Roses with Rock Your World. Assess your level of confidence for us right now.
You never get confident when you get in this close. You get nervous. But the horse is doing well. We're excited. You know, we feel we're in a strong position.
Most credentialed horse you ever had to the race?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Mike?
John Sadler, well liked out of Santa Anita. Visit him in Southern California. He is really excited about Rock Your World. Speaking of excitement, how good was that finish? 3 of them coming down to the wire. And in the end, goes in front. Flagstaff up at Morota's racing. Yeah, you got it. And then, wow, you're a Churchill there.
Aerial coverage is brought to you by Delco. 15-minute.
Champion was on. Lexingtonian got up for second over Whitmore third. Interesting note here, Jerry.
Yeah, because of the conditions of the race, Whitmore, because of his previous success, carried 5 more pounds. He carried 123 versus 118 pounds for both Flagstaff and Lexingtonian. The difference in the race.
And by the way, the 11 Hog Creek Hustle was a 31-to-1 shot. That's why that massive $405,000 payout. Wow, $1 superfecta. A couple of long odds horses add up to big money. The Derby is a race away. First is the Old Forester Urban Turf Classic. Again, older horses, 4-year-old and up. They go a mile and an eighth on the turf. $1 million purse. And Colonel Liam is the even money choice for the betting public, followed by Digital Age. Domestic spending goes second there. Smooth like straight. And Idog. Those horses that are single digits in terms of odds as you look at the field of 9 for the Old Forester Urban Turf. And then it's the Kentucky Derby, where Essential Quality remains the clear favorite with the betting public at 5-2, followed by Rock Your World and Hot Rod Charlie. Mentioned the last race was won by Luis Saez, who is aboard Essential Quality. The 28-year-old's back in the Derby 2 years after crossing the wire, first aboard maximum security, only to be disqualified because of interference. Saez went from the top of the world to a footnote in Derby history in 22 minutes. But now, he's back aboard the favorite in Derby 147.
At the end of a long day, this is Luis Saez's sanctuary. No matter what happens at the track, it all melts away here. Whether his day has been good or bad, or like that one fateful evening in 2019, when it was both.
I was very confident that I'm gonna win the Kentucky Derby. And I know he's gonna be there, he's gonna win it.
Maximum security up to the early lead.
He was traveling great. And I remember I was pushing him, and he finally, win the race.
Maximum security wins the Kentucky Derby.
So before they continue to talk about their commentary, I would just like to make a commentary about that. I was there, not at the Derby, but I watched that race live. And I really feel like that call to strip that horse of his title because of interference was simply a matter of the fact that right about that time, there was a lot of negative press about horse racing. There was a lot of horses that were dying at Santa Anita racetrack at that time. We still have yet to figure out exactly what was causing that. Seems to be something environmental was causing some inconsistencies in the surface of that track, which was causing a lot of horses to get injured. And unfortunately, there was a whole string of injuries and deaths. And because of that happening, then right after that is when this race happened. And so that's why I feel like the stewards made that very, very harsh judgment call to demote maximum security from winning that race. Personally, I feel like it was probably not the best call. I think that it was, I'm not certainly a track steward, but I've been around horse racing most of my adult life, and I watched that horse, and clearly that horse was a champion from the moment he stepped onto the grounds. He should have won the race. He did win the race. He deserved to win the race. There might have been some mild interference, but those things happen. To me, it didn't look like anything that was so severe that would cause them to make that call to actually strip the horse of the title. But yet the stewards did decide to make that decision. Maybe one day I can have a conversation with some stewards that can convince me otherwise. But in the meantime, I think it was a fear of bad press over horse racing that caused them to make that decision. And so forever in my heart, Maximum Security is the winner.
It was a big moment, big feeling.
Congratulations, Luis. I know you did.
As Saez and the team made their way to the winner's circle, an inquiry was underway.
I want to make another comment really quick too about that. If you'll remember in the beginning of this little segment, they were showing the jockey with his children, feeding the horses carrots and petting and loving on the horses. And I just wanted to say that there's so many people out there that really feel that horse racing is just like this horrible thing that's very abusive to horses. But having been involved in the racing industry my whole life, or most of my life, I can tell you that there are a few bad apples out there, of course, just like in any industry. But for the most part, you don't work the kind of hours that these people work and put in the kind of effort it takes to effortlessly, a huge amounts of effort to clean and feed and care for these horses from 4:30 in the morning, sometimes after midnight, day after day, night after night. Nobody knows what the weather is, no matter what's going on. So most people in the horse racing industry are there because they genuinely love horses. And so all the misguided folks out there that feel like it's this evil entity that just takes advantage of horses, actually the vast majority of people there love horses. Could it be done better? Of course. Is there room for improvement? Of course. Just like we were talking earlier about some really good changes, like not having Lasix in stakes races anymore. I think that that's excellent. But here I'll stop talking and we'll listen to the rest of the segment.
Actually disqualifying dangerous move made by his horse, Maximum Security.
Did they see anything that clearly impeded the horse and is worth impacting the result of the race?
There's been a disqualification. Maximum Security disqualified for interference.
In that moment, I was a little confused. That was like the big race. That it was my dream.
After 22 minutes of deliberation, Saez and Maximum Security were disqualified, and Country House was declared the winner.
After that moment, I feel very heartbroken. On top of the world, and then I was like, the world was. Sometimes when you have a little rough day and you come back home and you open the door, that baby came running to you. That's changed everything. So my wife, my 3 daughters, the little one, it's like being heavy. My daughters love to watch the races and they always rooting for me. They're happy and they scream when I win. And this year, I know my horse have a chance to win the Derby, and I just feel blessed to be there again, and ride a special horse.
Now, if that's not an underdog story you want to root for, I don't know what it is.
Return not to that winner's circle, but to the Kentucky Derby winner's circle that he was probably thinking he was on his way to 2 years ago. What an incredible year that was, and how reflected Saez involved in that was not in last year's Kentucky Derby. So he's got the favorite now, but is Essential Quality going to be the horse that you guys see winning this time now for the Ford race preview? Jerry, you get us started.
All right, so here they come down the stretch the first time. And then I have determined that number 15, Rock Your World has enough speed to make the lead, but I think he's going to be very conservative. Is jockey Joel Rosario with number 10, Midnight Bourbon with Mike Smith. Might end up sneaking up there. He's going to be close on the lead. Hot Rod Charlie's not going to be far off. Medina Spirit's not going to be far off. He could even be up there on the lead. But Essential Quality, the favorite, will probably be 6-7 lengths back of the pack, along with some of the other closers.
Then on the backside, Hot Rod Charlie will be in a good spot, stalking the pace as we start to head into turn 2. What we're worried about the most about Essential Quality back there, though, look how far he is outside. He may get caught wide around the first turn and even wide around the second turn.
This is so funny that they now use this animation to try to predict what they think the race is going to look like.
Here they come spinning out of the turn, and Hot Rod Charlie's bearing down on the leaders.
Knowing Agenda will probably have a rail trip, tries to make a little bit of a run.
I guess it's
Rock Your World is probably going to take the lead.
Decent excuse for not both handicapping
overtaking
the race.
Midnight Bourbon. Hot Rod Charlie, who's been sitting in the perfect trip, not losing too much ground. And here comes Essential Quality. Again, at least 3 wide, probably 4
By the
on
way,
the
I
final
think
turn.
Essential Quality has an
We have it
excellent
with Hot
chance.
Rod Charlie because of a good position early and not
Talk about why.
wins the Derby.
And if we're way off, forget where you heard it.
Okay.
Forget what you
You'll have to
heard.
watch the
Like
change
Letterman
rest
now.
pick, but that is the Ford race preview. The guys think Hot Rod Charlie will be the one in that forward position, not the clear favorite Essential Quality. So that's the horse portion of this story in terms of this race. There is also a story.
So I'm going to pause it there for a moment. We're going to talk about a little bit what's going on in this picture so that you guys can understand. Clearly you see hay and feed buckets and brushes and supplements and things like that. But notice the wrappings on all 4 of this horse's legs. So this is probably some cooling liniment that has been wrapped on his legs and all the way up over his knees too. So clearly this horse, either after his last race, had a little heat, swelling, inflammation, possibly. Otherwise, you wouldn't probably see wraps on all 4 legs as well as up and covering the knees. So I find that kind of interesting. So even though he's going off at 5-2 odds, which again, we talked about earlier, that means if this horse wins and you bet $2 for every, then you're going to win $5. Okay, so it's not, not very much compared to what a lot of them can get. It's actually, I'm sorry, I misspoke. It's less than that. It's less than that. So it's still not very much by any means. But for me, if I was handicapping this race, which handicapping means you look at the actual stats and statistics of all these horses, when they raced last, how quickly they finished, was it hard for them to get across the finish line first? Was it easy for them to beat all those other horses? You compare all those kinds of things, the distance of the race, the weather that day, if the track was muddy, all those kinds of things you take into consideration when you look at the statistics, which you can get from the racing, the daily racing form, which if you were at the track, then you would probably buy one of those. But this would be something, if I was handicapping this race and I was putting a lot of money on this horse, I would wonder a little bit about this. I would wonder if this horse had a little bit of maybe swelling or heat or inflammation in his knees, and definitely all 4 legs just because of all the bandaging.
International controversy surrounding the owner of Essential Quality. Essential Quality is owned by Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the ruler of Dubai. On April 20th, the United Nations asked for proof of the well-being of his adult daughter, Sheikh Latifah, saying that previous statements from United Arab Emirates of Sheikh Mohammed had previously arranged for the kidnapping of his adult daughters, which the Sheikh denied. On Wednesday, human rights advocates sought to have Essential Quality prohibited from running in the Kentucky Derby. On Thursday, the Kentucky Horse Racing Commission, governing body for the race, determined that the complaint did not articulate a violation of its regulations. So Essential Quality is in the field, remains the favorite, and our coverage leading up to Derby 147 continues in a moment.
Okay, well, somebody just told me I missed the turf race already because we're behind because I'm talking too much for one thing, and I'm trying to buy me some time so I can skip through the commercials. But we better catch up because I think we're too far behind.
I'd say with one knee. Yes, she said yes.
Oh, that's sweet. But I'm going to go ahead and keep on keeping on. I also find it interesting that there's this controversy about Sheikh Mohammed of Dubai, because for those of you that don't know, I did work for him also in Dubai. So not only have I shared with you during this little live stream that I worked under the same barn as Steve Asmussen, who has a horse in this race, but I also worked at the Dubai Equine Hospital in the Middle East.
American jockeys, and we want to make sure.
I'm gonna go ahead and fast forward, because now that I know somebody's out there that's watching that already saw the turf race, I want to get to that turf race. You can always rewind and figure out how to make your mint julep. I've had them before when I've been at the Derby. Not necessarily my favorite drink, but maybe it's yours. Bob Baffert.
Ready to ride the favorite to a whole new tale
Always wanna know
told
what they're
under the
doing.
twin spires.
Okay.
So, kudos to Churchill Downs. Today is all about the horse, but in life in the United States, it's all about the children.
Mattress Matt, great to see you. Best of luck. Don't ask me for my opinion on the Kentucky Derby, all right? Mike, back to you.
Yeah, Enzo doesn't want that pressure. Man's already wagered $1.7 million. He said he's going to put another $500 million.
Spoiling the turf race for you, that's okay.
Soul. Mattress Matt, part of the.
Trying to not make you guys just watch me fast forward through all these commercials.
Writing history. I think this is what I'm here for.
The spotlight is unfamiliar territory for 37-year-old husband and father of two, Kendrick Carmouche, who has spent most of his 21-year career working for an opportunity like this.
Oh, it's nice and peaceful back here. Where?
We met, he was 19 years old. You know, he's always dreamed of the Derby. So it feels surreal. And at the same time, like it's exactly what should be happening.
It took 2 decades and over 20,000 races to get here. But fittingly, it was his ride aboard a 72-1 long shot, who spent most of the race barely in the picture, that booked Carmouche's ticket to his first Kentucky Derby.
And here's Verbonic, who was last, making a late run, dynamic one, and Verbonic a photo finish. Verbonic got there under Kendrick Carmouche.
Passing that while you first by head, I tell you, it's like watching my firstborn baby, Olivia, come out. I cried like a baby. It was that emotional for me.
And it's a major upset for Verbonic, 72-1.
Wow, 72-1. That's amazing. I want to hear this story, but I want to go ahead and get on to the live racing and get a little bit further ahead. How exciting, though. Got the odds again. Sorry, America, I'm fast forwarding through this part.
Or 5 lengths off the lead, maybe 3.5, but he saves ground. Now Iran Ortiz's jockey starts to pick out as they turn for home. He's not giving up much ground there because it's the last little part of the turn, but he angles out, finds that clear running lane in the middle of the track, and here comes the finish. From 5th to 4th to 3rd, and he wears down his competition. He's done that the last couple of times. It's not easy to do, But Colonel Liam seems to have the ability to have enough early speed to get a good position and then work his way through the pack.
Hiram Ortiz Jr., the jockey, Todd Pletcher, the trainer. They combine on the number 4 choice in the Derby. The next race, no agenda, they combine here on the favorite, Colonel Liam. Let's go a little bit deeper in the field. Chad Brown, always one of the best conditioners when it comes to turf races. He's got 2 in this one, including the 5 domestic spending.
Both of them owned by Seth Kleiman. They're one highly motivated.
Yes, it's a Derby dragon. He likes the Kentucky Derby too.
Inside right, Acomoda's fourth by another length and a half.
Hurry up.
Digital Age right behind them. Running smooth flat on the far turn, getting a bit of daylight here. Smooth line straight opens up 2.5. Colonel Liam with an inside trip up into second position as they come toward the top of the stretch. Smooth line straight, and Colonel Liam is bearing down on the outside. Domestic spending is trying to put her to bit 2 and behind horses. From the back of the pack, 2 Digital Age is in tight bracket there. But
Jackie is really beating on that horse right there.
Who strikes the back?
Need to see that.
Domestic spending closing on the outside. They're coming down the line, and it's going to be.
Oh man, right at the end. That was a good race.
Their noses were right on the wire.
Wow. That was amazing.
Got another one.
So it's all even.
That's when you for sure don't know.
That's right. You saw Todd Pletcher, the trainer of the 3. He walked back for another rope, still uncertain with the photo. As we look with the 3 Colonel Liam, the 5 domestic spending with the charge on the outside.
One more time.
So look at the 7. The 7, the saddle slips back on the 7 in the middle of his back.
That looks like a dead heat, but the photo finish camera can discern some pretty slim margins.
Here we are waiting the photo. You heard the fans react behind us as the big screen showed the replay as you were watching of how close the 3 and the 5 were.
If it's not a dead heat, I want to see the photo. It's gonna be really interesting.
Yep.
Okay, I want to see. We're almost live now.
And what an effort by Colonel Liam. He ran his usual race, saved ground all the way, which is what he's been doing lately. Nice burst to the lead in this stretch. Looked like he was the winner until domestic spending came rolling.
You see a little bit of Irad Ortiz.
As a matter of fact, Colonel Liam, he's on the hedge here, and Irad Ortiz had a choice. He could have gone around the horse that was pursuing the leader smooth like straight, but he decided to duck back inside that 1, saving a little more ground and then tipping out. So if he wins, that's the winning move right there. He did nothing wrong. He saved as much ground as he could for as long as he could. Even domestic spending was inside him and then tips out late. So both riders have to be proud of the way they rode the races, not giving up any ground and just angling out the stretch.
Speaking of Irad Ortiz, the Eclipse Award-winning best jockey in the country the last 3 years, leading riders right now. This is aboard the smooth like straight with Reese Foley in the lead.
That's a cool camera shot.
7, which is on the inside of that photo.
See him moving out a little bit. Listen, I rode out 30 years. That's making me dizzy.
Wow.
Still no verdict, by the way.
Yep.
Still waiting.
Boy, just give a sense of what the jock has to do and try to keep that horse saving the most ground, keep him straight. They'll go there down the stretch.
You have to stay so still and yet with your upper body help that horse push forward at each stride that he takes.
You know, if it's not a dead heat, it ought to be a dead heat. Both of them run so well. They come to the water so close together. Wow.
Well, we've set in this spot and waited 22 minutes for a result. This won't take as long. This is just a simple photo in all likelihood. We said, Randy, you pointed out right away, you think it might be a dead heat, and you were exactly right. There is the photo. So first and second place money in terms of the purse put together split evenly, and in terms of wagering the horses play, pay, win, place, and show. So Colonel Lee at 283, 4280, domestic spending.
That was cool, dead heat. You don't see that very often.
Smooth like straight. On the lead, a good chunk of the way.
Probably the bearded dragon is once you get him out, he doesn't want to
So
go
a lot
back
of
home. He likes
exotics
being
there.
held.
You look at the exactas
So
and
you
the
better be
tribes
ready to just
and
hold him
super
for a
fat
while.
there. If you had those, job well done. Count again. The two. Luis Saez up 60th one shot. And King Fury.
Okay, so I know we're not quite to real live time yet. I'm trying to save a little bit there so that I can fast forward through the commercials, and then when we get to the end, we'll be right on real time. But let's talk about the odds a little bit of the Derby so far. The spread is quite large. You have a lot of horses here that are like 24, 28 to 40 to 1 shots. So those are all your long shots. And then, of course, you have the 3 undefeated horses that are in here, with Essential Quality, of course, being the favorite. And we've already talked about that and a little bit of my concerns. So we'll definitely check out the post-parade and look at that horse a little bit more closely to see if we see any signs of lamenesses or anything like that that might give us a clue on whether or not that horse really is a good bet to be the winner of the Derby.
Yesterday, one of these horses will become the next Derby champion, but how unlikely is it to get to this point as a thoroughbred? Let's take through the numbers. Since the Kentucky Derby is for 3-year-olds, we're going to go back to 2018, when over 21,000 thoroughbreds were born across
21,000 thoroughbreds were born in 2018. That'd be very interesting to me to see how that compares to other years. I do know also that there was 75% less horses shipped off for slaughter last year because of COVID than in years past. So I'm very, very excited about that. But I don't know if it's really because of less horses being born or less horses being shipped. I'm not quite sure how that plans out, but I'm just glad that that's happening. You can read the comments to me. Would you like to read the comments to me so I don't have to come around there and I can stay here and
America?
Yeah, so MTNVR said, cool pet. My brother and his wife used to have one.
They are. Let's see what won't get off of me. All right, I want to hear
less than half of those started a race, okay? Just over a third of those won a race. Even smaller number, 83 earned points qualified to get into the Derby, and 20, or 1 in every 1,000 or so thoroughbreds born in 2018, make it here, one destined for horse racing history later today. Bob Baffer knows about that history. He's in a class of his own when it comes to the training of a Derby champion. His 6 wins are tied for the most all time. He and I sat down with another man who's won his sport's biggest event as a coach 6 times, Patriots head coach, Bill Belichick.
Here with you, Bob, and I have so much respect for what you've done. And I know racing's a tough profession. You get one shot at it. There's no halftime. There's no timeouts to make adjustments. You know, once they come out of the gate, that.
We know what to do with them when we get them, and that's the thing. And it's all about results. Except in the Derby, I'm running against 19 teams all at once. You know, that's what makes the Kentucky Derby so tough and difficult.
The Patriots have won their 6th Super Bowl titles. 6 Super Bowls, 6 Kentucky Derbies. How does the appreciation for the accomplishment change as you get to number 5 and number 6?
To me, it gets harder because it's expected of you. You know, we expect Bill Belichick to win the Super Bowl every year, and we expect Bob Baffer to win, and it's difficult because they don't know what the process was just to get there.
It's just so competitive. There's so many good players, so many good coaches, so many good teams. Each one, I think, I have a little more appreciation for, but also recognize how much harder it is to get that next one.
6-time world champion. Sometimes people get to the top and they stop. But you keep going, coach, you keep going. What keeps you going?
Oh, I enjoy it. I enjoy every day of it.
Brady under pressure, launching one for the end zone, and it's complete.
There's been a couple of weeks that haven't gone so good, but you snap out of it and bounce back. And
So somebody's on there asking me about my thoughts on known agenda. So when we get a little bit further along, again, I like to handicap them along with watching them in the post parade. And I love those barn clips too, to where I can see kind of what's going on. So as we get closer, I'll let you know about that. So far, I kind of like Essential Quality myself so far. The favorite. I know that's a boring answer. Nobody wants to hear that. You want me to recommend the long shots, right? So you could make some money today. And just for the record, I usually don't put any money down. I've been a fan of horse racing and
27.
In the horse racing industry for a lot of years. I actually have a degree in horse racing management. I've worked on lots of racetracks. I've worked with lots of racehorses. And I really don't usually put money down unless I really feel like I've got a good handle on what's going on. I usually like to know the trainer personally and what's going on with the horse behind the scenes before I put too much money down.
In round 6 of the NFL draft.
All right, let's see if we can.
$5,000 as a 2-year-old, but that's nothing. As a yearling, he sold for just $1,000.
Yeah, those are the deals we're all looking for, right? The $1,000 yearlings that end up in the Kentucky Derby. Yeah, for sure. That would be something.
You've got to go.
Talking about Medina Spirit because Bob Baffert's other horses was on the shelf for an injury. But the horse that jumped out to the early lead was Rock Your World. He'd only run twice before, both on the grass. So he had a suspect under the radar, if you will. Nobody took him all that seriously. Yet he got into that comfortable rhythm on the front end, as he did on the turf, always close up early. And he just got away from him turning for home. So a bit of a surprise in the second year Derby because he's not that same comfortable trip today in the Kentucky Derby, uncontested on the lead.
Bob thought he'd have the blue chips, if you will, Life is Good or Concert Tour early on in the Kentucky Derby Trail. Those horses not here, but Medina Spirit, Randy said, a late round pick, right?
Yeah, but then don't forget, Bob, when Bob first came to the Derby, he
Yeah,
had all
but you
the
don't gotta
nondescript
respect
horses.
anything that Bob Bradford puts on the track, right? For
As well with him. He's been here before. Late round picks work out sometimes. Like pick 199. I like the Sunday Night Football music too. Be back in
Okay, I'm almost caught up here. We're almost live. So then we'll have the uncomfortable silences during the commercials when I pause them. I can maybe answer more questions about anything in racing that you guys might be interested in that I might be able to tell you, not being able to be there, of course. Maybe next year. Okay, almost there, almost there. Oh my gosh, we have to watch the puppies. I can't not watch the puppies. Plus it's Jimmy Fallon.
All right, come on up here, buddy. Essential Quality is
Essential Quality! That's what the puppy bowl says, and Jimmy Fallon.
Jimmy's numbers and our numbers are a little different, so don't get messed up by that. Aaron Rodgers is here, as mentioned earlier, along with fiance Kimmy Woodley. She starred in Divergent with Miles Teller. Miles and his better half are also in attendance here, and we mentioned
You're welcome for showing the race. Thank you guys for showing up and enjoying the race with me. I usually sit here and talk to myself in front of the TV and make comments, make my kids listen to me talk about all the things that I see that maybe other people don't see. So it's nice to share it with you and just
Essential Quality, the favorite, Rock Your World, and Hot Rod Charlie.
So far, Essential Quality is still the favorite. So, you know, again, it's boring to pick the favorite, just like when I picked Maximum Security 2 years ago, but sometimes they're just kind of clear that there's one horse that is most likely to win, and that's all the bettors know that, and that's just the way it goes.
Next choices, then noted.
I'm gonna try and get us a little bit further along here again. Let's see. I want to listen to this.
Essential Quality, a perfect 5 for 5 in his career, and those connections that we talked about the Louisville tie with Brad Cox. Essential Quality is one of 3 undefeated starters in this year's field. That's the most undefeated in the field since 1950. Records were incomplete before that. Bob Baffert, just heard for him, goes for a record 7th with Medina Spirit. Mike Smith making his record 27th Kentucky Derby mount aboard Midnight Bourbon at age 55. And of course, Triple Crown's back on its normal schedule. 2 weeks the Preakness, 3 weeks after that, the Belmont's all here on NBC. We started, as always, at Churchill Downs. And this is one of my favorite times of the year because this is the hour when all the buildup really turns into action.
Okay, so I already know the track is fast. We already know that. The Rose, I'm really interested in starting to watch the post parade.
What?
This guy's predictions are kind of interesting. I like the way he's laid out some things earlier. We are just almost live here, folks. And then the commentary will get more fun too.
On the stretch, they move up, and then Essential Quality draws a bead on Hot Rod Charlie. Hot Rod Charlie actually has the lead in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile last year, but Essential Quality wears him down late. Both horses back early on a hot pace, yet finish strong and finish 1-2.
Finish strong. That's
here's what Jerry's
right?
talking about. Louisiana Derby, just like Essential Quality was up on the pace in the Bluegrass. Hot Rod Charlie was on the pace with Joel Rosario that day. With Midnight Bourbon just to his outside. It was a tactical advantage beyond the rail. The pace was just moderate. And Hot Rod Charlie ran 1-2 all the way around the track.
So you see him switching tactics because of slow pace. Essential Quality, the same thing in his last start. The pace was really slow, so he's not that far back again. At the same point, he's up on the lead. Slower pace, the ability to have your horse be close instead of way back. Cute.
Big field of horses. You guys are the best riders in the country. You bring your talent here. You're riding the best horses there are. We got a nice, beautiful racetrack for you today. So we expect you to use your talent and your ability to ride a nice, clean.
Safe trip, everybody. Safe trip, right? That's what it's all about, for everybody to get around safe. You know, horse racing is the only major sport in the world that's so dangerous that an ambulance actually has to follow the athletes. That is a true fact. It's a very dangerous sport for those guys. One little accident, there's a reason why there's an entire fund for quadriplegic jockeys and jockeys that are in wheelchairs for the rest of their life after having bad accidents. All right, I think we're
Sure,
live.
they did
Folks. That's the
eventually
best I
run the
can
Derby
get
in
you.
2020, and that was a victory in and of itself.
Authentic has won the Kentucky Derby.
But those timeless rituals, those irreplaceable tributes that connect yesterday with today, were missing.
It was really sad because being a person that grew up in Louisville, I had great memories at the track. Even though we had Derby, we didn't have any spectators here. It was just wasn't the same.
The return of the Derby.
I'm with you, whoever said I'm ready for the races, let's go. It's terrible to have to watch all these commercials, right? That's the nice thing about being there live. You can really watch all the horses as they're walking up. It's much more fun to handicap when you can actually be there.
Things just feel right again. We have a tradition back. It just feels great to do something normal.
This springtime, in Kentucky and everywhere else, the chance to nearly open these grounds and start celebrating again feels more precious than ever before. Today, the mint juleps will taste a little sweeter. The hats will look a bit more spectacular. And when these gates open, the roar of even a smaller crowd might just turn out to be louder than ever. It's springtime in Kentucky, and it's time to start anew. Welcome back to Churchill Downs on the first Saturday in May. Welcome to the 147th Kentucky Derby.
And what a day to be welcomed back to the first Saturday in May, back on the traditional spot on the calendar.
Has anybody that's here watching ever been to the Kentucky Derby or even been to Churchill Downs? If you have, let us know in the comments. I was lucky enough to get to go to the Kentucky Derby once. I was not in the box, I was in the infield.
The 147
I'd like to tell you
running
about
up
that
the
maybe.
Kentucky Derby as we close at 45 minutes to post time here under the Twin Spires, which have been around since the
So we
late
still got some time
1800s.
to wait, some commercials we
Essential
gotta have
Quality
to
was
listen
the
to.
morning line favorite. Steve Kornacki gave you a great explanation of how Essential
here they
Quality
come.
has
They're leaving the
emerged as
barns.
a favorite.
So they're leaving the barn area, everybody's starting to come out. So this is what I used to do, would be get the horses ready and then your whole group of people collect and all start walking out together.
With all the money put into the wind pool there, rock your world next.
We've got all the pony horses here that are waiting to pick up the horses. Ponies are independent horses. They're called ponies. They're usually either race horses that have retired or big, hefty part draft horses that can take a beating because they are meant to accompany the horses to the starting gate. So they're not owned by the people that own the horses. They're actually independent riders and they own their own horses, and then they work for the racetrack and they work to help safely bring those horses forward once they get onto the track.
Hot Rod Charlie, those 5 brown former football players together in college, together as young 20-something owners, part of the ownership of Hot Rod Charlie. That's the third choice. And then Known Agenda with Irad Ortiz and Todd Pletcher, the jockey trainer combo, starting from the 1 hole, the 4th choice, along with Highly Motivated. So you look at the backside there, those green bars, some of the people who you just saw in that opening, those are the people who are the lifeblood of the sport in so many ways, with the horses every day. They feel the connection and the emotion as well. We talk about it so often. Jerry, you've won this race twice, ridden in it many times. This is a different race and a different day in so many ways. How about just the sheer size of 19 horses in the field in the Derby?
Yeah, I think the reason it's so elusive and so hard to win for us jockeys is this we ride about 1,000 races a year. One time do we ride with this many horses. So if you do something once a year, it's really hard to do and really hard to get right.
You see experience pay off there.
And you hear people occasionally advocate for reducing the size of the Derby field from, say, 20 horses to 14. They say 20 horses makes it a crapshoot. If you did that, you lose horses like Mind That Bird, Giacomo, Canonero. And to the second point, it's not a crapshoot. If you go back and look at the 20 horse fields in the Derby and ask yourself in hindsight, did the best horse win that year? You'll be shocked at how often the answer is yes.
And we've seen long shots finish on the board in the money many times, second, third over the last 4 or 5 years. So there's significance to that.
Okay, let's see how far ahead I can get now. I would really like to get to where we can see pictures of the horses themselves. Could you read to me the comments that are over there now?
Of course. So, MTNVR said, yeah, I almost can't watch the NFL anymore because of the commercials. Haha. And she MTNVR said, I grew up going to Del Mar a lot and being there.
Del Mar, wow, cool.
And being there live is so much more fun than commercials. I'd like to go to Louisville one day.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I'll tell you about my experience going to Louisville. And I've been to big racetracks, really Churchill Downs and Keeneland are the 2 biggest ones that I've ever been to. I've been to lots of other tracks that I worked on, smaller tracks. But I want to make some comments before we move on. One of the things I wanted to point out is, of course, the grooms that are walking here. So 2 interesting things. Number 1, this horse is wearing a ring bit. So that's kind of an interesting thing. Just to know it's a type of bit that has a big steel ring around it. That tends to be for harder pulling horses. You kind of need that extra support. Also, this is a stud chain that this person is using there. Hard to control. Now, so all these horses are hard to control. They're young, they're extremely physically fit, and they're hard to manage even by just one person to get them safely from the barn area up to the racetrack. This gentleman here is most likely the horse's groom because he's walking on the left side. And then the other person there probably also works for the trainer or something like that. And he's just helping be extra support. Because especially in a situation like this, when you have all of these people and little kids around and things like that, you really want to have control of this horse and make sure it's not flipping around and spinning around and gonna run into anybody. So is there some comments there?
Yeah, so MTN.
You can just ask me the comment.
Okay. So interesting. I was wondering about those horses. I always called them the friends as a kid. Smiley face. And then he or she, I don't know, also said good info. Thanks.
Oh, good. Yeah, good.
Nerves or confidence?
Very confident.
Good luck.
Another thing you'll notice, so not only is this horse going to race in a big ring bit, but you're going to see right here, there is like a little rope or something like that. It's actually going here underneath the horse's top lip. So not only are they walking this horse with two people, not just one, but and that one is using the stunt chain on the side. So if he gives a jerk, that chain is going to thump that horse in the side of the face and be unpleasant. And then this gentleman here has that rope that's literally going underneath the horse's lip. So that's another way that a horse that's hard to handle is by a lot of pressure in the sensitive areas of the gum right underneath the lip.
Let's go to Nick.
Kenny, Hot Rod Charlie, boat racing. They said they had a bit of a void to fill when they left college. Patrick O'Neill, is this filling the void okay for you?
You can't make this stuff up. We're at the pantheon of horse racing here at Churchill Downs, at the pinnacle of the sport, with a chance to win the 147th Kentucky Derby with Hot Rod Charlie. It's unbelievable.
Your uncle, the trainer, Doug O'Neill, he's won this race twice before. What confidence is he filling you with?
I mean, Doug's an amazing human. He's an amazing family man. He's a mentor to all the boat racing guys, and so.
With trainer John Sadler sending out Rock Your World, you've made this walk before, but you had said earlier today that this is your.
One thing I want you to also tell you about is that it's really funny how they make all these beautiful ladies in their nice dresses and their high heels have to walk in the dirt track of the racetrack. So it looks like it is all very glamorous, but walking in heels down the track is really not that glamorous.
Strongest chance. What is it about Rock Your World that gives you so much confidence?
That's just a really good horse. You know, he's won all his races. He's done what we've asked of him. We think he's a natural for a big distance. So we're excited to be here.
Best of luck to you. I'm with some of your longtime owners, Michael Talla, Costa Hronis, and Pete Hronis. Michael, just put into words what this means to you doing the walkover with your first Kentucky Derby starter.
Well, it's it's an out of world experience. 4 months ago, December 31st, we're back.
So same thing here, mentioned this earlier. This horse has a shadow roll, something interesting for you to see. It doesn't mean too much to me as far as whether or not I think that makes the horse's chances better or not. Sted chain going underneath the lip, again, just indicating that it really takes a whole lot of, it takes a lot to hold these guys in and be able to even just walk them safely because they have so much energy. They're so strong.
We're going along our regular lives, and then all of a sudden we have a horse that wins by 5 lengths. 2 months later, he wins by another 5 lengths. And out of nowhere, you've got a Kentucky Derby horse, you hope. And then he runs on, he qualifies, and it's a changing life experience, and he's rocking our world. That's for sure. He's rocking our world.
Now he is. Enjoy every moment of it. Costa, Pete, enjoy this. Edzo, let's get to you.
Okay, Brittany, thank you very much. I'm here with Todd Pletcher, walking with his daughter, Hannah. Todd, I got to ask you, 2-time Derby training champion. You got 4 in the Kentucky Derby. That makes 59 starters, a record for the Kentucky Derby for the trainer.
A lot of horses in one race.
How is this preparing for 4 horses to get saddled up here for the Derby?
Well, I mean, the preparations went really well. We shipped in about 3 weeks out. In fact,
so again, this horse has bandages on his back legs. So for me, that's a little bit of a red flag. I always kind of pay attention to that.
2 productive breezes over the track with all 4 horses, and I'm really, really pleased with the way they're training.
I got to ask you about.
So then this person here is also a groom. She's walking with a bucket and a sponge because what they're going to do with that is probably wipe the horse off if he's sweaty when they get to the saddling paddock. Maybe even squeeze the sponge in his mouth so he can get a little bit of water, but not have a big drink of water before the race begins.
The horse that I think has the best shot of your 4, and it's not a jet on to really win the Florida Derby. Everybody's talked about it's been a long time since the horse has won the Kentucky Derby, coming from rail number 1, 1986 with a great.
And so this horse is wearing bell boots. So he won't race with those. Those are just to protect his feet as he's walking up, so he doesn't.
Ferdinand, your thoughts with Ray Ortiz Jr. of getting a good break and getting some position?
And so you notice this horse doesn't have, this is a calmer horse, so he doesn't have a chain under his lip and all of that like some of those other horses did. So for some people, that means that they're maybe less likely to bet on that horse because he's not having all that like crazy energy. So it's always that balance, right, of having enough energy to let it all out on the racetrack and not try to run the race beforehand, or not be excited enough, like this horse maybe you could say is, and is too calm and doesn't have as good of a chance because he's not hyped up and ready to go.
Yeah, we have to do that. Everyone has to do that regardless of what
And
post
that
position you're in.
advantages on
I do
the
think the
back
new
legs, too. I'm
starting
not sure
gate
that's
with
the
20
same one I
stalls will
saw
make a big
earlier.
difference. Thank you.
Let's go to Donna.
Unusual to see a trainer leading his Derby horse over, but Midnight Bourbon has been schooling here all week.
So here's Steve Asmussen, who I was talking about earlier. I used to work in the same barn with him. It is unusual for the trainer to be walking the horse up. That's very unusual because they don't usually do a lot of that stuff. The grooms are usually doing all of that. His horse is drooling right here because he's got so much anxiety about getting ready to come up for this race.
I've been talking about the crowds all day, and Steve has noticed that he has been sensitive to that noise and movement that he sees from the crowds. Steve, you look.
Another thing I want you to notice about this horse that I've been trying to find an image to show you, and I haven't found a really good one yet, but when this horse moves his head away, you'll see that I think his tongue is tied. I'm not 100% sure, but tying a horse's tongue down to the roof of their mouth is actually really common in horse racing, just so that on some of the other races, actually, you will see horses whose tongues are kind of flapping out of their mouth, and that can be just a distraction, so sometimes they'll tie them down.
He looks like he's being good. Maybe you have a minute to answer a question. How is he being?
Well, obviously, very happy. The schooling obviously has paid off, and to this point, he's acted excellent.
You also, besides Midnight Bourbon, you have Super Saver in here, and you've said this isn't your Super Stock. I'm sorry. You've said this isn't your Derby with Super Stock. It's the Derby for your parents. Can you talk about that?
Oh, just driving to work this morning, Dad said he'd waited for this day for 79 years, and I thought that was accurate.
Nerves, it's anxiety. This is their first time to have a starter in the Kentucky Derby. Superstock also gave Steve's son Keith James his first stakes win as a jockey, and he is on the other side of Superstock, leading him over.
So you're coming down from the barns,
Family affair down there.
through the tunnel, and they're going into
Emotional
the saddle
story on her.
pad. Is there a question?
No, but I did see that horse tongue was tied down.
You did see. So usually what I've seen is they usually get their tongue tied in the saddling paddocks right here when they're getting their saddles put on. But every trainer does things a little bit different.
Team Medina Spirit, owner Amazon, Triple Crown winning trainer Bob Baffert, his son Bodie. Bob, the pressure's off. You won the race for your wife. Now the Kentucky Derby. I've always wondered, why do you watch the Derby from the paddock? The pageantry, the walkover, why do you hang out in the paddock?
For years, I was up there, I really couldn't see that well. And I like, to be by myself. I have the space. And if things don't go well, there's the exit to my car is really close by. But the pressure's still on because the business is then here, who actually bought the horse. He's got me here. I didn't bring him here. So it means a lot. And, it's his first Derby, so we're excited.
Maybe we'll be talking to you after your first Derby. Best of luck, gentlemen, to both.
So again, I'm trying to get to where we can see more of just the horses themselves.
100 people, 20 of the best 3-year-old thoroughbreds, and they come underneath the Twin Spires, then down to the paddock where many more folks are waiting, and they'll get connected with the jockeys and head bound.
Rundown damages in the back, those are called rundowns on
Get your
that
heart
horse.
moving, gets the blood pumping. You can feel the energy, you can hear the emotion in all the stories of the
those
human
things are all that
connections.
make
Same
me
truth to these
wonder a
19
little bit
jockeys,
about
the annual jockeys portrait
if they had
taken,
injury.
and they will make their way down the stairs and they'll
Quality has faced 40 45 horses in his career so far, and none of them have figured out a way to
What's
beat
going
him.
on?
I'm not going to try to beat him today. Essential quality for me. Lafite and Nick.
Yeah, I'm with her. I think it's essential quality.
Loser gets dinner, Nick. What do you got?
There'll be no agenda for me. No horse has won from the one gate since 1986. I think you can defy that stat. That's about when you last picked for this.
Rock your world. We're just seeing the tip of the iceberg in his fourth career start in a Derby win for John Sadler. Tell me, Brittany, what do you think?
That needs to be like.
Lafite and I see things the same way. I think we're going to see an electric performance from Rock Your World, undefeated, and I think stays undefeated.